So if you guys haven't heard, Valve apparently no longer controls Steam, but the story goes much, much deeper than this because I guess games are essentially getting removed from Steam if they're not deemed proper. And you'll see what I mean as we go through this, but it's certainly not a good thing and it's not a good precedent to set. But Bellular News is covering this one. We watched many of his videos before. He does a good job covering this kind of thing. So let's hear what he has to say. It's a longer one, 21 minutes. So lock it in.
Changes everything, and Valve, at least from their perspective, had no choice but to implement. So here's what's happened. Last week, Valve quietly added Rule 15 to Steam. They used to have 14, now there are 15. And this 15th rule bans content that payment processors don't like. Now this is not—
So in other words, it is no longer Steam or Valve that controls what's on there. It's essentially Visa and MasterCard.
illegal content. It's just content that Visa, MasterCard, and PayPal find to be objectionable. And here's what this means. It means that Valve no longer controls what is on their platform. The payment companies control that.
Which is wild.
And if this kind of thing sounds familiar to you, it should. Countless platforms like Patreon have experienced similar. And then just after we finished the body of this video, well, the hammer blow fell on itch as well. There's a lot going on. On Steam, though, to just stay focused on that for now, what just happened is that hundreds of games just got pulled. Developers got a $100 credit as compensation, and this is just the beginning. We're going to see way more, and the situation is that the people impacted are furious. The fans are actually quite scared, quite worried, but the people who pushed for this change, they are happy, they've had success, and they are not planning on stopping. I've also got
That's the real problem with it.
Thousands of you who have visited and used our sponsor, Boot.dev, and that news is TypeScript. If you know what that means, you know it's pretty huge. The entire backend learning path is now playable in TypeScript as well as Go. It's funny, Lane, the founder's tweet, basically just reads, "Fine, you win. We've capitulated to the way of soy because enums." And if you're wondering why you should care, well, TypeScript is Microsoft's vastly more powerful JavaScript, static types, fearless refactors, editor autocompletion, lots of lovely things, which is why Google, Slack, and Airbnb use it in production. It lets you catch bugs while you're coding instead of, when the server's on fire. TypeScript's awesome. Now, Boot.dev wraps all of that in the power of an RPG. That means quests, XP, boss fights, real-time leaderboards, community, all of that. You get to enjoy that while you're wiring up databases, building REST APIs, deploying to the cloud, and now doing all that with TypeScript. And by the time you finish your learning path, you will have a portfolio full of back-end projects.
I've always wondered why online things don't do
and Go in any
things in a more
going to be huge for employers.
Gamer-friendly way like that.
There's a bit of a hack to save you the most money. Boot.dev/Bellular News, code Bellular News gets you 25% off with your first purchase. But what you can do is buy the yearly plan for the largest saving, because 25% of a bigger number is a bigger number. And if you don't gel with it, well, just use the no-risk 30-day money-back guarantee. Okay, let's talk about what actually happened. Steam used to have 14 rules.
So what you said there is someone said, imagine if they removed GTA 6. I think people need to realize it could happen. Like, it won't, because Take-Two is a massive company, but it could, right? Like, some of the things, the lines that GTA would cross are some of the things and reasons why some of these games get removed. So, like, there's a line, and if they continue to go in this way, that will happen, or could happen at least.
Developers, we actually just looked at it recently in this video, but now there's a 15th rule. So here's the new rule. Content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors and related networks and banks or internet network providers, in particular certain kinds of adult-only content. That's, the thing you can't do. Now pay attention to the wording here. May. Not does violate. Just may violate. And what's key to understand is this goes beyond the existing rules. As an example, Rule 3 already bans mislabeled adult content. Rules 6 and 7 ban illegal content and shock value material. So what's Rule 15 for? Well, it's for content that previously was allowed by the other 14 rules. Content that is now retroactively banned. And here's how the rule played out. Eagle-eyed users spotted a change. SteamDB's removals list basically exploded overnight. Hundreds of adult-only games vanished, especially games that, we will call not involving consent or involving family members, right? The sort of thing that many people would find to be extremely distasteful, but that in the setting of a fictional thing for adults is not illegal, at least in every...
Nympho wife, family secrets mummy, lust. What are the, I honestly did not know these existed.
Jurisdiction, right? And that's the bit that's interesting. So yes, this is unpalatable content to some people. It's illegal though in a few jurisdictions, which we'll address later in the video. But here's what matters, right? Not all of these games are illegal. What this was a blanket removal. And you may say that in theory, Valve is complying with the law, except they're not. This is
well, like, so for example, Fallen Princess Knight, that one doesn't sound so bad.
It's not about the law. This is about third-party pressure, not legal compliance. The reason why is, well, payment processors. The admission. Valve admitted everything in a statement that was sent to Rock Paper Shotgun. They said this, quote, "We were recently notified that certain games in Steam may violate the rules and standards set forth by our payment processors and their related card networks and banks." Again, not do breach, just may breach. That's a through line here. So responding to this, Valve pulled all of the games. Notified the devs, offered the $100 and called it.
See, this is going to be the problem. In the future moving forward, there's such a monopoly on payment, like with Visa and MasterCard, that if they or the people working for them just decide that something is not okay or inappropriate or you can't buy it, they are going to be the ones that decide everything, because that's how payments are processed now. And that's a huge problem, and there's essentially a monopoly on it. Yeah, there's like American Express and things like that too, but I truly believe that they're all going to fall under the same umbrella. It's not like one allows, like the first time I ever saw this was with online gambling. So back in the day, America essentially allowed you to play poker online. And eventually that got banned. And then it wasn't banned in Canada, but most of the payments that we used here, like Visa and MasterCard, didn't allow you to load money onto most of the gambling sites. So you had to find other ways, like you had to go out and buy a prepaid credit card that could then be used on there. And this is like, it just amplified further.
Day. You might be thinking, God damn, you didn't even put up a fight? Well, yeah, they didn't. And there's a reason why they just called it a day and caved so quickly.
That's how they make money.
The brutal truth is that without PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, Steam kind of dies. Or at least a lot of its revenue goes away.
Almost
think
all.
about it. Visa and MasterCard control, didn't make this up, 69% of global credit cards. It's a pretty high percent. They dominate debit cards in the US as well. And lately they've been flexing. They've been cutting off other businesses. And if they drop Steam, that would be game over. Valve can't just go and create their own payment network. Can you imagine dealing with the infrastructure, the regulatory compliance for all the different regions? It would be a nightmare. So Valve are trapped. But you may notice something's been left out. We know that it may be the guidelines of the payment processors. We know that Valve is worried. But who's actually driven this issue?
That's a good question.
The agitators. The Aussies. Yep, the Aussies have done this. Thanks,
okay.
lads.
What is with the Australian regulation board that they just hate games? Like, there's so many games that get banned in Australia. It's insane.
Basically, right? An Australian group called Collective Shout claimed a big victory here. Basically, they sent an open letter on July 11th. It targeted PayPal, MasterCard, and Visa directly, and it got 1,067 supporters to basically email these companies. Which is not a lot, but it was enough. Now, they claimed then that they were subject to misogynistic abuse online for being involved in doing this campaign, and it was loud. A lot of people looking at this basically just said, hey, you censorious bastards, go away. You don't get to just impose your whatever values on the rest of us, especially not the rest of the world if what you're basically doing is trying to go for the payment processors. Now, look, I am not making a claim that you should like all of these games, right? Or that you should find them palatable. No, I am not. What this is, though, is a policy discussion, one that actually does impact all of us. Now, what they were pushing for, I think to a lot of people, is an overreach, certainly a risk, certainly worrying, as always.
Yeah, like I don't think any of us, or most of us, some of you definitely do, you sickos, but I don't think any of us really care what happens with these games or not, right? But moving forward, if they can all of a sudden say, oh, you're not allowed to buy GTA 6, you're not allowed to buy Ready or Not, that's where a problem happens.
On the internet, there is a small percentage of people who go way, way too far in not liking something. That did mean that they, would be able to take, oh, that's a misogynistic message, that's an angry tweet. They could just take all of those things and actually use them as further proof that they are being subject to misogynistic abuse online. And this would just further their argument, make it stronger, make it more emotionally resonant to the people at, say, MasterCard and Visa, who themselves are probably just worried about getting negative press. Now, let's go more into this group. Who are Collective Shout? Well, Collective Shout describe themselves as, quote, a grassroots campaign movement against the objectification of women and the sexualization of girls. They've been active since 2009. Their targets range quite widely. This is from actively illegal stuff to just content that they simply find to be distasteful. And they've taken on legitimately unsavory products. Tate Brothers, for instance, they try to challenge like sexist advertising. They boycott some films they don't like the 50 Shades of Grey stuff, but they've also went...
Have you guys seen the Sydney Sweeney thing? I bet you they hate that one.
...to target mainstream gaming, like, say, Grand Theft Auto. They actually
there
got
we go.
GTA
This is what I'm talking about.
From shelves in Target and Kmart in Australia. And in that case, it was on the grounds of violence against women. In an open world game with a whole bunch of characters, if you just go beat people up, yeah, you can do that. You know, you can say, oh my god, look at this terrible thing in the game that I just did and recorded. Interesting. Now, they also went for Detroit Become Human for the same thing, but their campaigns against that game all failed. But it is clear that, yeah, they're able to pick up wins. I mean, even in Steam, they've got wins, and this is not their first win on the Steam platform. They've complained about multiple Steam games before. Some got pulled individually, but this July, things have been different because they changed tactics, where instead of targeting Valve, they just went straight to the payment processors. Which, look, if you're a political operative, definitely say that's a smart move, right? Go above and above and have a massive impact. That's what they decided to do. And
because what the world works around is where the money comes from, right? And if you stop where the money comes from...
These are companies that have caved before. As an example, take a look at Tumblr. They banned all adult content after payment processors threatened them. PayPal has actually dropped ebook sellers over, let's just say, non-vanilla content. Non-vanilla content that is legal. That's the thing. And this is basically the playbook, and it's one that has just worked on Steam. But here's the thing, I kind of just misled you. I did it though for a point, so let me explain. It is true that their campaign against Tumblr worked, and that yes, Tumblr just went to pull down all the prawns. But part of what sealed the deal for Tumblr was heaps upon heaps upon heaps of actual child,
actual illegal things.
Abuse content, material, CASM, I believe it is called, in the press. Now, the Tumblr was, or cheese pizza is often what people would say online. Now, the Tumblr was a disgusting cesspool that was riddled with that actually illegal, just about everywhere content, was essentially an open secret on the internet. Tumblr was absolutely asleep at the wheel. They did not do a good enough job of policing their own platform. And because of that, I honestly can't say I'm surprised that payment processors wanted nowhere near it, because the facts were that content existed there, and a lot of, the maps.
I didn't even know you could pay for things on Tumblr, so...
They congregated there. Okay, let's bring us back to Steam, though. So, Waypoint's Anna Valens reported something interesting here. She flagged that Valve does actually put extra scrutiny in adult game submissions. For just one example, a game got rejected for inaccessible files that, quote, might feature underage characters. So, was illegal content really getting through all the time with Steam? I would say probably not in most cases. But it did happen once. Steam did have one major slip-up. Collective Shout exploited that.
Of course.
Do you remember a game called No Mercy? It released in March, and it featured, quote, non-consensual domination of family members. Collective Shout mobilized against this game. 3,000 emails were sent to Gabe Newell, 70,000 petition signatures happened, and here's the crucial detail. That content was illegal somewhere, just not everywhere. Where it was illegal was the United Kingdom and Australia, and actually under relatively new laws. Now that does mean that under Valve's own rules, that game should not have been sold at all in those regions.
Oh, but it was?
But Valve didn't act for 5 days. They only acted after international media coverage. I mean, the UK government even commented in that case. Now, eventually the developer pulled it entirely to avoid causing Valve more problems. This, of course, gave Collective Shout ammunition. They could just point to No Mercy and they could say, see? Illegal content can get through. The implication was perhaps that Collective Shout over-egged their claims, perhaps mixed the potentially illegal in some regions with content that they simply find distasteful. Never mind the basic fact that most of the removed games were not illegal in all territories. But the narrative stuck. The waters were muddied because of this No Mercy thing. Groups like Collective Shout can just point to an event like No Mercy being pulled, and they can use that to convince payment processors that other illegal content might be there on the platform. Because all they really need to do is convince a large company that, look, it's
like MasterCard
before, it could happen again. You don't want that risk. You should pressure them. That's how this kind of thing goes. This story, though...
But here's the thing, though, is here's what I don't understand about this. If you're Visa or MasterCard, can you get canceled? Like, you can't. Like, do you remember back in the day when, like, Kanye West got debanked, where his bank no longer allowed him to bank there? Well, it's not like the bank can get debanked. They're the bank. So, like, what are those companies actually worried about? Like, I have never, like, my grandparents, they'll get really, really mad at, like, news and stuff as it comes out. They're not going to change the card that they use. They're not even going to relate it to the things. Like, it just, the most they can do is lose market share, but they can't really, because it's two companies.
Actually hit rather differently when you know a little bit of the history in the background. You see, back in June 2018, Valve actually made a
promise. Like, is there ever... like any story ever where a bank or specifically a credit card company has gotten canceled and people have stopped using it in masses? Ever? Like, a serious question. I don't know.
They said that anything not illegal or trolling was actually allowed. Now, this came after backlash over adult game removals. They specifically said that they would not cave to payment processors or to interest groups. But here, 7 years later, they have done exactly that. They've just went and pulled games that may violate payment processor rules. And remember, that is the wording of Valve's new Rule 15. May, not does, may. Now, you might think that may is just a very woolly, non-specific word.
Maybe the Discover scandal. Can you explain a little bit more about what that is? But also, Discover isn't one of the major two credit card companies. They're not a part of that 70%.
I would actually argue that here, oh no, may is a very, very specific word. They're using it because, well, it might not, but we don't want to run the risk of getting the proof. That's the specific language. It's a rule directly designed to give Valve preemptive permission based on their interpretation of other people's rules, but not anything that's actually deeply fought over or proved in any sort of objective sense, or at least one that would lead to like a common societal or legal whatever consensus. And in a way, that's scary. What's next? I mean, will developers see these mysterious rules before they go and submit their games? If people can find success over things that they find distasteful, what does that mean for other types of games? What happens when payment processors change their standards again? Because they will change them again.
They will, and they'll get more strict.
The Collective Shout just proved that the formula works, the plan works. Just over 1,000 emails alleging illegal content force this change. Not proving, just alleging. That's a low bar and a low number of emails. And here's what really worries developers. Payment processors have targeted...
The middle management agrees at MasterCard and Visa agree with the censorship. Well, I think they like the idea that they can control as much as... I don't think it's necessarily censorship. I think it's a control thing. Like, that's the problem with monopolies, and technically those are illegal in the United States, right? It's the same problem that I have with, like, Bell and Rogers here in Canada, or internet providers. Yeah, it's not a monopoly because there's these other ones. Like, there's Virgin, there's Fido, there's all of these. But guess what? Guess who owns all of those cell phone and internet lines and towers? Bell and Rogers, which means they have a monopoly. But because there's two of them, they don't technically. It's incredibly frustrating. It's the same with like the way that it works in the US as well. TELUS is under Bell. I don't know if you know that, but TELUS uses Bell's internet lines. I believe. I could be wrong about that, but I'm like 90% sure.
Queer and minority content before. It
you
often
can't
would
censor
get
without
flagged
control.
As adult only in a disproportionate way. And in some instances, as an example in YouTube, that would simply just be because of who is making it and the sort of topic they're talking about, not necessarily what's in it in any way that, say, if it was just normal, basic, hetero stuff.
You should look it up. I'm not 100% sure, JK,
targeted,
but...
Right? So that's been awful. It's happened on YouTube. A lot of those people are also worried about this. Not just, you know, big Team Goontown who just wants to have Steam Gooner games. But guess what? Gets worse. So as we recorded all of this, we saw further proof. itch.io essentially descended into chaos. The site had to de-index any content tagged as adult from their browse and search pages. That effectively takes it out of the public eye. It kind of removes
Because is that what they were used for?
Now, they posted a blog that explicitly tied this to Collective Shout and payment processors. In their own words, quote, "This is a time-critical moment for itch.io. The situation developed rapidly, and we had to act urgently to protect the platform's core payment infrastructure." That essentially meant they had to act as fast as they could and then deal with talking to developers later. And what's happening now is the company are auditing their entire platform to review content that, you know, would be against the standards set by these payment processors. Standard devs will now have to sign off as sort of meeting all these requirements on their pages. And again, these are not legal requirements. These are just the rules of payment processors, you know, not the rules of itch. And it's...
Well, just to be clear, internet providers are actually trying to do similar things to this, and they are in the States already.
That could be adult, right? Could. The not safe for work tag doesn't just mean FAP. It doesn't just mean nudity. It can be a lot of other things. And here's what's wild. The game count on itch went from 28,000 games to under 7,000 as of this morning.
Oh my God.
That's 21,000 games. Award-winning artistic titles are being hidden and being pulled, all while the devs impacted by this cannot pull their funds from the site while their accounts are under review. In a way, it's itch's fault, but they kind of feel like they have to do this. I mean, compared to
so yeah, here's a great example. So Slot says that I couldn't find all the information on the Discover scandal, but they had to pay $2 billion in their interchange fee scandal. So that's not what I'm talking about here. That's a fee scandal. There's never been a time where a credit card company has been canceled for allowing someone to pay for something. Because what someone pays for has zero to do with the company allowing them to pay for it. That's just overreach, in my opinion.
Absolutely tiny percentage of Steam's traffic, but itch isn't Steam. As a distribution platform, many of their pages are for art, books, non-commercial games, right? Both digital and tabletop. Especially they have pretty good penetration into the LGBT side of things, who maybe can't distribute through other channels, so they're also disproportionately impacted by this. So basically, kind of no matter where you are in the spectrum, this isn't particularly good for you. And for the people making this, well, they are just in limbo, their livelihoods cut off. So it's not surprising that they're kind of not willing to take this shit. You know, it's funny, the internet is an extremely divided and divisive place, but if you're to make it a Venn diagram and you're to put in a circle that just says Homo sapiens that get kind of horny, guess what? That covers almost everybody. So I'd at least hope that this could be an instance where people who perhaps wouldn't normally be on the same side of an issue can maybe band together, because it does actually impact everyone, because it's about the shared rules of the game. And that's what leads me to developers of not safe for work games trying to fight back. They are preparing a petition to the United Kingdom government. One of our members from Bellular.games passed on this statement to us from the petition. They want legal products to be protected from payment processor censorship. But of course, the big question is, will this matter? Because in 2018, Valve said they would
So in other words, removing that word, the word of may be illegal to it is illegal. That's what they actually want changed, which is completely reasonable.
And creative freedom. In 2025, they won't even fight. I mean, Gabe, my boy, even Tim Sweeney's more of a goddamn fighter. Look at him. Dude just went to crack open Google, and, you know, even though it was really self-serving, he did actually succeed in cracking open a lot of Google and Apple. Just kind of ballin'. Shame about the whole exclusivity thing. Anyway, the message is pretty clear here. Any content that payment processors find objectionable could be next. So, look, it might start on a transfery game and a, you know, sort of gooner game in Steam. Maybe two separate bits of the thing. It may start there. But what if it continues? I think we can see that sort of thing continue. Again, the laws that a bunch of this stuff isn't actually allowed, allowed per in the UK and Australia, those are relatively new laws. So we should actually think about the direction of travel here. You may not like something or agree with someone's, actions or whatever, but the law that hits them could hit you in ways that you don't necessarily have the capacity to predict, because we can't look into the future. That's why thinking about the more baseline systems is actually what's important here. Because at the end of the day, in almost all of our societies, what's the point? The point is, well, laws are made up that are ideally via some sort of democratic process. That's the sort of stuff that people think they should be beholden to. Now, a private business has, of course, the right to do business, whatever way they want.
It's money. It all comes down to money, and always will.
But what happens when a private business becomes such a large foundational piece of infrastructure that you cannot get around them? That means that whenever PayPal, MasterCard, Visa, and other providers pretty much all agree and are very worried about their big corporate interests, about trying to defend their position as infrastructure by cozying up to governments, well, what way do you think they will end up being biased? But to bring it back to Steam, Steam being the place where anything goes as long as it's legal, is now dead. The spirit of it's mostly alive, but it is literally dead. Here's the thing. Once you become a platform that's large, you become a kingmaker. You hold a lot of power. If you invite not safe for work people onto your platform, you are saying, hello, we're inviting you over here. We are going to do business with you, and that would be great for all of our shared customers. You're safe here. Do business with us. Trust us. Well, if your processes are not tight enough to defend that space, say to let illegal content in, as Tumblr kept on doing, well, you basically betray all of those people that took you on good faith. And that means you are breaking your end of the bargain. Valve have done that here. And there's a reason,
as he said, it only takes that one mistake for that to actually happen.
Why it's content like this that ends up being the sparking point. It's carnal. It's animalistic. It's topics that people feel, right? It's fears that people hold, and fear
Some
magnifies.
of these names, man.
As today shows, it only took 1,067 emails orchestrated by a group that knows how to play the system in a country far away that doesn't have much to do.
So we've actually seen some good things happen in this way. If you remember, we saw certain things like the charger for Apple get changed because of the way that the UK passes these laws. We recently, what else did we see? The Stop Killing Games movement moved to the next level. Things like this. This is an example of people using this in a different way, as a way of censoring things as opposed to opening things up. So that's the thing, is if you know how to play the system, things like this can happen.
With most of the people watching this channel, yet it impacts global Steam. That should be worrying. And even better for Collective Shout, it's self-sustaining. That's because pushback, insults, and perhaps abuse that they get from people who have been angered by all of this, guess what? That just gives them more fuel to do corporate jujitsu on risk-adverse multinational corporations who want a good quarter, no risk, no bad quarterly report dramas.
Oh, everyone wants the good quarter.
The bar is low, and the language of their rules is worryingly vague. It's not the only legal problem Steam has got. Oh no, there's another big one. We'll be covering it shortly. But for another policy issue that impacts you, well, how about this?
So yeah, it's worrisome. I think that's essentially what it comes down to, is this one a huge deal? No, but the next one will be. The next one will be the GTA 5, or the next one will be the Schedule 1, or the next one will be the game that's supposed to be the next big thing because, oh, guess what? You could, playing Red Dead Redemption 2, you could take a girl hog tie her and put her on a train track, right? So what are you going to do, I guess? Yeah, I don't know how you fight a company as big as Visa or MasterCard. Someone in chat said, well, can't we cancel them? How? They're too big. It hits a point where you just can't. You can't control it. And it's just like you're kind of at the influence of whatever they want. And that's the sad truth.